Welcome to our web exclusive. I'm Mike Montecalvo along with Eyewitness News analyst Lieutenant General Reginald Centracchio. We will get to the President's State of the Union speech in just a few moments, but General, we start off with a close friend of yours, J. Joseph Garrahy, who passed away on Tuesday at the age of 81. And it's safe to say if you had to pick 3 words to describe the former governor, I think it would be a decent man.
Absolutely. And I think when you look at the meaning of a friend, you look at the meaning of a governor, you look at the meaning of mentor, he had all that, and he was able to be a friend, be the commander-in-chief, be the governor, and be a mentor all at the same time. And you really had the kind of confidence and trust in him that he had for you. And I couldn't, the time that I did work for him, which is through his entire administration, not as the Adjutant General, but as a staff officer with the Adjutant General's office, never once did I ever feel while I was in his company that it was anything but pure leadership, total trust and confidence in what he was giving you for a mission, and he was always prepared to give you the resources for it, and he never tried to second guess. All he had was a simple question: can you do this? What do you need to do it? And I'll step out of your way. And that was Joe Garrahy.
You know, and he won 4 terms as governor, including a time where the economy was really terrible, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But if you look over his resume, you could say somewhat of a career politician. Yet, if you look at career politicians today, he doesn't fit that description for some reason.
You're absolutely right. I think that was probably a time that we'll never see again. But let me back up a little bit before the political life. He was also in the Rhode Island National Guard full-time with the Air National Guard that many people perhaps don't know. But I think he had the kind of charisma and the kind of leadership that extended based upon, I think, a lot of his ability to deal with other people, not only in the military environment, but certainly as a governor and eventually a commander-in-chief. So I think all the things that we say about him right now, he exercised every single day, and I'm looking at this as a personal loss.
Well, he was Deputy Majority Leader. He was Lieutenant Governor, and as I mentioned, back then, when it was governor, the terms were 2 years. He won 4 times. So he really related to the people. And then when he got, when he wasn't governor anymore, you didn't hear him second guessing any of the other governors.
Absolutely.
He was just out of it.
Yep. And I think that was, once again, one of his signatures. He was never, I think, to some extent, he would never second guess even his staff or any of the directors across the entire state. If he did, it was always in a closed environment. He would tell you what he expected. He would say, okay, look, this didn't go that well. Let's try it this way. Here are the resources. Now you come back to me with what you think you need if this is inadequate. So it was never an open confrontation about something that perhaps hadn't gone exactly the way it should have. And there was a lot of respect for the guy throughout the entire state, not only from the citizenry, but certainly the people that had the responsibility in his administration.
Well, General, it is said that leadership qualities stand out during a time of crisis, and obviously we know about the blizzard of '78, but I think people also forget, too, that the tragedy that happened at Providence College just a couple of months before that fire that killed some students, he was a part of that, too, front and center, and then a couple of months later, the blizzard.
Yeah. And if you look at how he operated, it wasn't a matter of him being there and micromanaging the thing. He was there in support of those that had the responsibility to get the job done. And when it was, even in the process of getting the job done, he was able to step in front of a camera and give credit to those people that had the responsibility and not take all of the responsibility for it and take credit for it. So I think his style of leadership was one that perhaps we may never see again. And I kudos to him, not only as a person, but certainly as a governor, commander-in-chief, and as a genuinely good guy.
All right, let's talk about the blizzard of '78. Now, we go back in time. It's not like today where, they will hold a news conference to say there is a snowstorm coming up. Back then in 1978, it was quite rare for a governor or something to be front and center. Was that his idea to say, hey, look, we need to be telling people what's going on?
It was. I wasn't here for the initial part of that blizzard. In fact, General Holland, who was the Adjutant General, and the entire primary staff were stranded down in Nashville, Tennessee. And eventually we got back to the state. But in the meantime, Governor Garrahy had marshaled up at that time General Kiley, who was the assistant AG, and General Fraser, Tom Fraser, who was the son of the liaison between the Guard and the governor. And so between the three of them, and Sandy Amato too was the director of the Defense Civil Preparedness
A lot of
Agency
names from the past that you're bringing up here, General.
And I'm really feeling old doing it, let me tell you. They determined that they had to keep the people informed. And if you try to draw somewhat of an analogy as to what can be successful and what can't be, that's the exact point. Let's go back to the December debacle of a few years ago. That's exactly what was missing. All they needed was to have someone stand in front of the camera and say, this is what we're doing, and we'll keep you informed. That was missing, but that wasn't the case with Governor Garrahy. So I think he took the advantage of standing before, and I don't know how many TV stations were there, but I don't think there were very many, and certainly radio was there, and he leveraged that and made sure that the people of the state felt that everything was being done that could be done, and he was in charge.
Well, thousands of people were stuck on the local roads, and including myself, trying to get out of school. But the one thing I think you could say is the one key thing that he centered in on was he knew he needed federal assistance, and he knew he needed it right away. He didn't want to wait, a week to figure this out, because he knew he had to get people to come in and help plow.
Yep. I'll tell you a side story with that. The request for federal assistance, to some extent, you always deal with some kind of bureaucracy. There were numerous Caterpillars and dozers located at Davisville. Now, just to get access to those dozers and Caterpillars for the state was a task all by itself. General Holland, once again, at the time was the Adjutant General, and he came in with a C-5 full of equipment from some other state. And I remember it so well that the nose of that C-5 came down, and there was General Holland with all the equipment being the savior for the state, so to speak. And I can remember the conversation with Governor Garrahy and General Holland. He says, now listen, I'm the governor, right? You're the Adjutant General. And he said, let's work this thing together. But he's that kind of guy that he could get a point across and make sure that you understood exactly what he was telling you. So good memories.
All right, let's talk about some of his accomplishments, General. First, he was really one of the first politicians out front and center about cleaning up Narragansett Bay.
Absolutely, and I think he was, if I'm not mistaken, he created the Narragansett Bay Commission. And that dealt with trying to clean up the overflow of rain from time to time, and I think that had the genesis of that tunnel that we see now. So I think he was a way out governor insofar as looking forward. He had a tremendous vision. He was able to leverage that vision and get much done, and to include the Department of Elderly Affairs was created. Another one was the Department of Children and Families, I believe, was created under his tutelage and certainly his leadership. So many of the things we enjoy today really had their beginning with his vision.
And he focused in on the lad school, too.
Yes, he did. And that was another story with not having enough resources to be able to develop to its full capability. But I look back, and many people don't look beyond, unfortunately, his plaid shirt in the blizzard. Sometimes that's what they remember. But beyond that, he was a true governor. He was able to articulate well. He related to the general public. And they looked at him as one that they would trust and had a lot of confidence.
How did he get through the high unemployment? Because it kind of, if you look at it, it kind of mirrors what's going on today. Double-digit unemployment. He faced really a recession in the early 1980s. How did he get through that?
Well, I think it had to do with recognizing that this wasn't a fault of the state. It was the state was participating with the rest of the nation as to what the economy was doing, and he tried, from what I could remember, to be able to instill confidence in the business and private industry versus throwing any kind of state or public money to try to improve the economy, which I think is what we're looking at right now. And I think he gave much support to small business in the state during that whole recession, and eventually it worked. And I think that's the same thing that needs to be done today insofar as this governor is concerned. You can't look at recovering an economy based upon using federal funds or state funds. It has to be based upon small business and private industry being able to offset those things that we're seeing right now. And that was one of Governor Garrahy's, I think, strong points.
John Chafee, Claiborne Pell, Pastore, Garrahy, You know, these are really names from the past. You can throw Phil Noel's name in there too. He's still alive. We won't see those politicians again?
I don't think so. I think we are intent on being so politically correct today that we forget that we need to be honest and we need to be trustworthy to be able to say, this is what I think, and if you don't agree with me, that doesn't mean to say I don't respect you or you don't respect me, but we try to develop how we're saying something so that we're going to satisfy everybody all at the same time, and it's impossible.
Okay, he does leave behind his wife Marguerite and 5 children. There are many buildings, of course. The Garrahy Judicial Complex in downtown Providence is also in his name. Of course, Eyewitness News is going to stay on top of this story and bring you reaction throughout the week. Let's switch gears real quick, General. The State of the Union address, your take on it last night.
You know, I looked at it as a political campaign speech. I didn't see much that was different from last year's. The thing that I did have some good feeling about was he did recognize that the unemployment rate really is significant to the military coming back from Iraq, and because we are now downsizing our military, there's going to be more of a demand to develop jobs and to give incentives to private industry to be able to hire these vets. That was the highlight, in my opinion. But I think everything else was a matter of wishful thinking.
But isn't that the whole idea of a State of the Union when you really think about it?
No, I think the intent...
Or that's what we've heard over the years.
Right. The intent of the State of the Union by our Constitution requires the President from time to time to give the status of the United States to the Congress. And you need to be absolutely certain that when you say the economy is good, then it's good. If you need to say we're not in a recession, you need to say that and be factual. I think when you try to cover it and be politically correct as to what you're saying, so you're not going to, I would say, get the Congress angry at you and expect them to not do anything that you want them to do, is, I think, the caution. And so therefore I think you've seen a diversion from telling what the State of the Union is versus to what you want to say as a candidate for the president.
Well, obviously Congress is divided. What about Iran? Do you want to start hearing him say more about that?
I absolutely do. You know, when you look at over the past day or so, there's been more threats by Iran to close the Strait of Hormuz. The United States is prepared, and so are the other countries, to not let that happen. I would rather have him say it just like that. Iran, get this message and get it clear. You attempt to do this, and we will do whatever it takes, to include military action, to keep the strait open and end it right there. You can't just keep qualifying it. Well, if they talk to us about their nuclear program and this and that, just say it like it is and get off the subject.
Okay, and finally, Navy SEALs being credited again, 2 people freed in Somalia.
Yep. Great operation, certainly indicative of the kind of men and women we have in uniform today. Once again, I'm proud of the President acknowledging the Osama's demise. Unfortunately, it didn't happen last night at the State of the Union. I'm sure he would have recognized that too. That was this morning, well after the State of the Union. So the SEAL team, I think, is going to be a way that we see future wars fought and not have, you know, troops on the ground, boots on the ground. You'll see these covert operations taking place, and I think that's the way the new strategy will start to unfold.
Okay, General, as always, thank you very much for your thoughts, and thanks for watching.